Latin American team members. I understood I'm the last one to present his practice to you. It's also actually good we did it so late. So basically, because we just merged my practice with another practice. Sorry, I'm just looking for the button where I can share my screen.
Top left hand corner, you have a green screen with a arrow.
I see it. So I share my entire screen. Okay. So yeah, so my presentation. Top present. Okay, thank you. I seem to be really slow in technical things right now. I thought I was fast, but I'm getting slow. So sorry for that, and you can make some jokes about me. So okay, so my practice now has changed for the second time this year. So it's not anymore public advisory. It's not anymore climate finance, but it's green finance. And basically, green finance is a merger of two practices we had before. One was climate finance, which was basically advisory for the public sector, development banks on mobilization of private finance for climate action and sustainable development goals. And on the other side, we had green funds, which was actually a own unit that was doing fund management, investment advisory, mainly for the private sector, but also sometimes for the public sector. And you may have heard that at Safol there was some rethinking, and we decided that we are actually at the moment not pursuing to manage investment funds, so funds that are requesting return, because there's some legal implication. And our more natural role is actually advising such funds or managing grants. So basically the green funds offering or practice has been renamed Green Finance, and because it's basically an advisory offering, we decided that it can move under the consultancy or service and data team or units business line. And we decided also to merge climate finance and green finance or green funds because there was a lot of overlap. So we always discussed where it should be, and we thought it's not really helpful, so we are merging now this, and it's just green finance. And I'm going to present you what green finance is doing. And basically, you know, starting with our role within South Pole. So not sure you have seen this. Is kind of our new way of how we talk to the external world about what we're actually doing. We're trying to transform systems in terms of renewable energy, land use, cities, industries, and water. And we do this through different means, which is understanding climate risk, scaling clean technologies, pricing externalities, mobilizing finance, and monitoring and verifying impacts. And clearly this practice, green finance, is about mobilizing finance, both private and public, for the 5 dimensions you see on the right-hand side. So renewable energy, land use, cities, industries, and water. So a broad practice, not focusing just on renewable energy, as some of you may think. Where we stand within the offering, basically to external world, we say we have like 3 types of offering: advisory, data, certificates, and green finance. So what you see is my practice on the right-hand side, green finance, kind of a third offering, but that's just more in terms of communication. If you look operationally, green finance is nothing else than one practice under advisory and data. So maybe you have some, looks a bit different to the external and the internal world, but internally we're just a practice within advisory and data. So the unit or the business line led by Francisca and by Sarah. Now our offering is still a bit under development, it's a bit changing, but currently we see basically 5 offerings we have. One thing is policy advisory related to green finance for policymakers, development banks, governments. That's what I did before. Then platform fund management. With fund management, we basically mean grant management. This is also something I did before and will now expand. Then advisory fund investors and in different areas, mainly renewable energy, clean technology, and land use. And this could include deal sourcing and due diligence. Then the 4th offering is the management of technical assistance facilities. For you, those who don't know what TA is basically technical assistance And it means that you're normally supporting the development of projects. So you help projects on legal side, on technical side, on financial side, that they basically become bankable and can access commercial money. And finally, we're doing research and development for new products in this practice. This is how it's a bit structured, more like hierarchically. So we have green finance led by me, and we have basically 4 current offerings. So policy advisory led by me, platform management also led by me, then investment fund advisory led by Patrick Orca, and the TA facilities, which is more like a new thing we are now developing, also led by Patrick Orca. Plus, we're aiming for becoming a professional grant manager. So starting from what we already do, like the platform management and TA facility, we work on becoming more professional with our processes and systems, so we can even handle bigger sums. But actually, we have handled a lot in the past without having any corruption issues or any any big failures. So actually, we can even say we do that, but we agree we can become even more professional here, and we work on that.
Sorry, what exactly is grant management?
Grant management is that you receive money from a donor. It could be a private or public donor. It's basically grant money, so they're not expecting any financial return. They just expect some other return. It could be environmental benefits, social benefits, other things. This depends on the client. And basically, the grant management means you take this money on your books, and then you decide how it's spent, right?
Like the technology fund, then.
Yeah, well, the technology fund is actually a case where the money is not our books, right? So we're just doing some, so basically we're more advisor of the technology fund. We're not even managing that, because the fund itself, it's not held by us, not landing in our accounts. We're just doing analysis, due diligence to advise the investment committee of the technology fund where to make its investment decision. So this will be more on the fund advisory side. But grant management means it really the money arrives on our books, right, on our bank accounts, and we through some decisions decide how we on grant that, right, to which projects we do it. As you can see, that the typical thing that Safo did in terms of getting money from its client and investing that in carbon credits, this is also kind of already a type of grant management. If it's not a brokerage, if it's really if the money arrives on your own bank account. So yeah, this is something that we have done in the past, and we want to do even more in the future. Then, apart from these 4 offerings and kind of the long-term vision, become more professional grant manager, we have this R&T, which is more, it's not a current offering, but it's basically that we want to further develop our offering. And mainly we talk about corporate renewables, so whether we can provide offering for corporates to put, for instance, solar PV rooftops on their roofs, and basically offer a service how they can, externalize the finance, for instance, to third-party finance. So that's something we talk about, but it's not a current offering. It's more in development through some projects I'm going to talk about in a moment. So I just, for these 5 items, I want to give each an example, so you see a bit what I mean, and then also in a next step, I want to show what we do in Latin America, which is little at the moment in green finance, but there are at least some ideas and some thoughts. And then I'm opening up to questions, and obviously you can always interrupt me if you have any questions. So green finance, some examples for our advisory work. So policy advisory work. So an example is this renewable energy platform for philanthropic donors in Southeast Asia. Interestingly, that's not on platform management, it's on the policy advisory, because basically we advise them on how to set up this platform. This is a mandate to assist the Children Investment Foundation with the design of a renewable energy platform in Southeast Asia. And what they envisage, it's roughly a 20-50 million platform. And the goal here is to accelerate the adoption of renewable energy in the region. A group of philanthropic and international donors, so it's not just private, also public donors. They propose to scale and better coordinate funding to address largest gaps or barriers, you can say, for renewable energy in the region, and adopt the right de-risking instrument. And obviously, this is in line with the Paris Agreement. So the Children Investment Fund is our main, is kind of who pays us. Basically, it's about more money going here. And what we now do is we build a joint architecture for this platform, which we now elaborate, and this should help to increase the flows of capital, in particular also leverage existing flows to the region, obviously working a lot with blended finance, so mixing public and private finance. So things we're doing here, for instance, we advise them on the governance process of this platform, the different work streams, so which areas, so for instance, you know, like de-risking financial instruments, but also more approaches on diplomacy or engaging the industry, working with policymakers on regulations. So there are different work streams. We advise them, and we do a lot of analysis, so they can also prioritize which countries they want to focus on and which technologies and how they can cooperate with other donors. So that's the current mandate in the policy advisory area. On platform management, we do manage a little platform for the Nordic Council of Ministers called the Nordic Public-Private Collaborative Platform on Climate Finance. And it's not an platform, it's a platform for mobilizing climate finance, public-private. It's been launched by the Nordic Working Group for Global Climate Negotiations under the Nordic Council of Ministers. It's kind of a tender we won. And this is actually a relatively simple platform because it's more about sharing and facilitating a dialogue on operations, on operational experiences on how to mobilize climate finance among the private sector, investor, financial institutions, and also public sector stakeholders. We do this in cooperation with 2 partners, and you see a picture here from a workshop we had in Copenhagen, but there are also like calls we have, webinars, and also we're going to write briefs to summarize some of the lessons. And Anna is a project manager here and doing a really good job here. So actually, if not the project in Latin America, at least the project managed out of Latin America. And we obviously hope to expand this platform to make it bigger and also to extend it over the end of this year. But platform manager, just as you know, it can be also about much larger platform that then really deploy money, I mean, in terms of grants. So we'll come maybe to another example later on. Fund advisory, I mean, you mentioned that, as I said, so Swiss Technology Fund is actually a case of not fund management, but fund advisory. So it's a loan guarantee fund established by the Swiss government to support Swiss companies that want to contribute to reduction of greenhouse gas emissions or other green measures. It's actually quite large. It's 150 million that is guaranteed, and it should be increased to even more, like 500 million by end of 2020. So all this money is never on our accounts. It's just that we are doing analysis for investment decision. And importantly, I think what compares this case to other cases, we are not doing just environmental assessments, we are also doing financial assessments. So we're looking into the balance sheets of these companies and how, how strong they are, how, where we see risks, and whether we really see that, that the guarantees could actually bring these companies forward. And we do this with other partner who is more in the fund management side, but is actually now sharing all of the work with us. So they're doing environmental assessment, we're doing financial assessments. Then moving to investment advisory, I think basically this third offering, so fund investment advisory, it's not just for funds, it could be also for investors. So for instance, we're having a project we call Renewable Energy Impact Investment in Indonesia, where we advise 2 European impact investors to identify and develop a pipeline of small hydropower stations in Indonesia. And there we do also due diligence. So we look at the technical feasibility of these projects, also at social environmental impacts, risks, as obviously a policymaker wants to know, and also political risks. And the interesting thing is this investor is not just return oriented, they also want to have, or not just economic or financial return oriented, but they also want to provide clean source of energy local communities, and they want to deploy some money for additional measures for the communities, and we help them to deploy this money in the best way. So this is actually a last bullet point, the impact foundation that should benefit local population. So there's an additional layer here, not just the actual investment, also this additional funding for local measures. And you see here some of the measures we take. Now, TA facility, this is something I could actually almost hand over to Emmerich, who knows more about this than me, because he has been the project manager for the proposal that won us this mandate with SECO. It's a project development facility in Southeast Asia focusing on renewable energy. So the background was the Swiss government was tendering for such facilities that are attached to funds, because normally for many funds the problem is they don't have a good deal flow, so they don't have recent good investment cases. And obviously if you attach some project development money, it becomes much more likely they have some projects. So they were looking for funds that will need such a TA facility, and at this stage we had the Asia Energy Transition Fund that was looking also for better project in pipeline. So we applied there, we won this, and if the role of SAFO will be to find the necessary legal, technical, and financial experts to help project developers to make projects bankable. Importantly, the mandate will only start after the ATF reaches first closure. So that's kind of a project in waiting, if you want. So we cannot start before the ATF reaches first closure. So has the first bunch of funding secured. But in the end, we see this quite an interesting area, because deal flow is a core area in green finance that is our core barrier in green finance. So we want to strengthen that. And we also see that we have a lot of strengths here because of our 10+ years experience in project development from a carbon side, and also our wide network with experts around the world we can bring in for these facilities. Obviously, we'll never do TA facilities everywhere. We'll always focus on areas where we're strong. For instance, here we have clean energy in Southeast Asia. We could talk about land use in Colombia, some parts of Latin America as well for TA facilities. Well, we cannot do things like something in Africa on, say, storing carbon capture and storage or whatever. So it will have to be somewhere close to our knowledge and where we have good contacts. But we look for further mandates in this field. Then finally, on research and development, a case is the Innovation Facility Finance Energy Transition, IFET. This is funded by by Climate Kick and directly European Union. The aim is, on one hand, on the project to become a global excellence center to foster innovation for global energy transition, new business model, de-risking, deals origination. And with all the goal to facilitate the scale-up of investment worldwide for energy transformation through testing new solution and then also disseminating them. We have to say, as South Pole, we have, apart from obviously building this platform, you can also say it's kind of similar to the SIF mandate, where we build a transfer platform, and maybe later on we can manage the platform. So it would then move on to the second offering. But we clearly, why it's under R&D here currently, we mainly see that as an exercise to develop new offerings for us. And we are particularly interested in the renewable energy corporate offering. As I said before, that we can think about rooftop solar, for instance, as an interesting business model for countries where we have high electricity prices, and you can maybe save money if you install your own clean energy on your rooftop. But then also providing a good service that simplifies the financing of these activities. So that's an area we're exploring here with this project, and we have some university partners here. Yes, so basically I think these was a short overview of our offering and a few examples. Obviously I could provide you more examples in these cases, but I don't want to talk too much. Just an additional 1-2 slides in Latin America and open up. So as you see, all these mandates are either in Europe, Latin America, or Asia. There's little in Latin America. I mean, the Nordic platform is open to Latin America, but it doesn't have a specific focus. So we currently think about, we're currently having 2 proposals in the pipeline. So one is on Green Climate Fund and other funding concepts for Peru, and the other is for green infrastructure and financial centers in Latin America projects or proposals we're working on. And then, yeah, we should definitely do more in the region, look just at the renewable energy potential in the region. And obviously we have a strong land use knowledge in the region we should somehow explore. So let's not remember, even though this is not currently under green finance, but we have some platforms or some programs we have managed on land use, also in South America. So for instance, this Jagger Connection program, which promotes emission reduction projects in different Latin American countries or South American countries. And we do this in cooperation with ISA, a public-private energy company. And many of these activities here that will help us to further develop offerings here. And there's an ongoing discussion with the land use people, what we can do in this region to make sure green finance is not just on clean energy and mainly in Southeast Asia. We're working on that, and obviously any comments and suggestions are most welcome. So this was a quick presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions from anyone. So not sure, maybe Sarah, you're going to coordinate the discussion session?
Sorry, I couldn't find how to unmute. Yeah, well, I think if you have questions in Mexico, just feel free to go ahead. Alejandra?
Anyone? Any question? No, we do not have questions.
Okay, anyone?
Do we have like a specific strategy to engage the like relevant stakeholders in Latin America, like government officers and stuff like that, get for their mandates?
Sorry, it was Mariano, right? Sorry, the connection is quite bad. I really failed a bit to understand the question, so try to repeat it. Maybe you just have to write it here in the chat box.
Can you hear me any better?
A bit, yes. Try again.
Yeah, so my question was basically if we have a defined strategy to engage government officials and other key stakeholders to get any further mandates in Latin America.
Okay. Thanks a lot. So your question was whether we have any strategy to engage further stakeholders and get more mandates in Latin America. I mean, currently not. We're just doing it on a more case-by-case basis. I think it was also a bit, so we're coming new to this this practice and realizing that we have actually a really strong focus. And in one way, I currently try to address the issue is to more explore on land use, because we have, as you know, particularly in Colombia, a really strong team that would be really certainly able to expand their offering, and we can maybe combine it with more the financial and branch management know-how we have here in Europe. And maybe that's the easier strategy than trying to come into the renewable energy field where we have actually really little background or like projects we can offer. So it's really difficult to win any mandates if you start from almost nothing, right? So and it's also a market that is well established in Latin America. You have a lot of competitors, so we have to focus a bit on our key strengths and try to build it from there. Obviously, I mean, as you see, the mandates I have on the list are a bit strategic in a way that we try to get a foothold, right, in Latin America. So one thing is in Peru, to start writing these green climate fund concepts, which obviously will bring us more in touch with, what the priority needs are in Peru, and also the key areas of support needed. And obviously this could be one stepping stone. So for instance, we have actually their plan to outsource some sectors, but for instance, the forestry sector we want to do on our own, and we want to use our Colombia team so we can combine a bit our land use forestry knowledge with more the fund management or the the fund or finance advisory knowledge we have. So that's one way of how we do that. For instance, there we also partner, as for instance Ana and Pablo know really well. We partnered with La Bola and Libélula, for instance, in Peru, who are all partners that are really strong in Latin American markets, and we hope we can use also these partners to get more mandates. And the second one, as you know, is as I mentioned, the financial centers one. There we partner with a company in Brazil who is really experienced that. And basically, as you know, we're really strong, in particular in Mexico team, when it comes to other asset classes, for instance, particularly debt equity assessment from a crop side, but we're not that strong yet in the infrastructure asset class. And obviously for green finance, we also have to think a bit about how is green finance different from, say, crop, because in the end, you may, you may talk about impact assessment or a risk assessment for similar type of clients. I think the key difference is we're at green finance more talking or dealing with individual infrastructure projects, green infrastructure projects. We're at best portfolios infrastructure projects. So it could be a fund, a program, and so on. While Croft would more deal with portfolio of assets and screen that and advise investors on that. So I mean, that's a bit the difference here. But so obviously the project where we work on, or the proposal we work on for IDP with the infrastructure assessment, will actually try to bring us also in Latin America more to the infrastructure side, right? Where we can apply the knowledge we have from some other parts of the world. And I mean, the good asset is now that we have Hans-Peter on board, who has worked a lot on sustainable infrastructure and also in Latin America. So he also in other parts of the world. So he can help as a bridge, build a bridge between our knowledge in other areas, other regions to Latin America. So I mean, these are some of the things I can say. It's not too much, but at least the first answers. Any other questions you have?
No, any.
Okay, great. So I see there are many people currently not in Latin American offices, like Christina here, and I also see Hannah, Pablo, and also Sarah in other offices. Any questions from your side? The non-Mexicans.
Yeah.
Yes, Sarah, please.
No, all good. I just wanted to say Hannah is actually sick. That's why she's not in the office. And Pablo, works from Valencia now, and Christina, well, you've seen her in Zurich, and indeed in France for the time being. I don't know if you heard me. My internet is a bit slow.
I heard you, and this means you don't have any questions right now.
Yeah, I think we're good to close the session. Thanks a lot, Martin, for your time. That was very helpful.
Okay, thanks a lot as well, and have a nice start of the day or evening, wherever you are.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good time. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.